Here are some of the waiver wire targets for the week. Florio, walk us through your picks here.
Yeah, Taysom Hill, we were talking about him earlier. He's my top QB ad. Then there's Carson Wentz, who just gives you over 17 fantasy points each week in a good matchup against the Jets. Justin Fields is just exciting right now. Teddy Bridgewater, I know he's been a little bit up and down, but he's got a good matchup next week. Then Jimmy Garoppolo, wanted to give him some love after the big game he had. Tyrod Taylor looking like he is going to return in a favorable matchup against Miami. Definitely in play in 2 quarterback leagues. Carlos Hyde in case James Robinson can't suit up. Boston Scott and Jordan Howard after they each scored 2 touchdowns each. Jordan Howard, I still think, is just a deeper league guy. And then Mark Ingram, because he was utilized and good matchup with Taysom Hill. Maybe he gets more workload there. And then looking at some of the receivers and tight ends that you can grab off the waiver wire. Devonte Parker. Oh, Jeremy Mcnichols is there too. He is a big waiver wire target now after Derrick Henry. Devonte Parker, he was dropped in a bunch of leagues, came back yesterday, saw 11 targets, has a good matchup next week. Cole Beasley, he's been up and down, but getting good volume as of late. Elijah Moore, we discussed. Nico Collins has been utilized as the wide receiver 2 there, and with Tyrod Taylor returning, I'm a little excited about him. Brandon Aiyuk, Marcus, yesterday saw a season high in targets, so I'm not quite ready to fully give up on him. Jamal Agnew getting consistent volume as the slot receiver there in Jacksonville. Tajay Sharp, we discussed. Then Pat Fryermuth and Dan Arnold, 2 tight ends that had a little boost in volume. So if you're a little bit desperate at tight end, and who isn't, I think those are 2 names for you there.
Good options for you to check out. You can always see the full list, by the way. Florio writes the column every week, NFL.com/waiverwire, so you can get that and some little in-depth analysis as well. Boston Scott obviously had the big day on Sunday for the Eagles. Next week it is the Chargers. Does that make him a must-start for fantasy managers?
I'm not sure if he's a must-start, but I definitely think you likely have to start him, depending on your other options. The Chargers give up a lot of fantasy points against the run. Boston Scott, what I liked, Marcus, was early in the game, they did sprinkle in Jordan Howard in short yardage situations, but he was getting the bulk of the work. He had the only RB target. He had the 2 touchdowns there. So I definitely think he is the Eagles running back that you trust most. I'm anticipating ranking him as an RB2, which doesn't mean must start, but it means more than likely you do have to start him.
I do think he's going to be started in a lot of leagues, if not for just people kind of chasing the points, but the opportunity is going to be there. And we know he's going to catch the football more than Jordan Howard probably will, so there's some upside there for that too. So, yeah, I'm with you. He's not a must-start, but he's going to get some serious consideration in a lot of leagues. Mike White had the huge game for the Jets as they surprise the Bengals and get a win there. Next up, they have the Colts next week. Maybe you start him in single quarterback leagues. I feel like this conversation goes more for 2 QB leagues, super flex. Would you throw him in a lineup next week? Maybe even in daily fantasy, would you throw him in a lineup?
Definitely not in 1 quarterback. Even in 2, I would be a little bit hesitant. I know he played well yesterday, threw for the 2nd most yards ever in a quarterback's first start, but I'm still hesitant to trust him. I mean, this is still the Jets. This is still a guy that as of 2 weeks ago, we didn't really know his name. So I think unless you are I would rather have Tyrod Taylor over him. So to me, even in 2 quarterback leagues, I think he is a little bit of a more desperate play. He could prove me wrong, and maybe he is what the Jets thought Zach Wilson would be, but a 1 outing is not enough for me to completely change everything on him and the Jets.
This also feels like he kind of took the Bengals by surprise. They didn't have a lot of time to maybe dig in on Mike White tape, and that's kind of why we got what we got. So yeah, I don't know. I'd probably stay away. Last one, real quick. Pat Fryermuth, who I've liked as a sleeper, and he's had some moments where he's flashed. Is he trustworthy as a starter? And maybe it's just because tight end is bad, but do you trust him?
Yeah, I think he's on that borderline. Like, he'll be like a top 15 tight end, so it depends on your other options, especially if Eric Ebron is out again, or potentially even dealt. He's been mentioning some trade whispers, but the rookie's got some juice. He's a good red zone weapon. I am excited. I would definitely be picking him up this week, and I think he is a start candidate this week.
I think he's a start candidate this week, but I think if nothing else, he's definitely worth just picking up and stashing and holding and playing when the matchups are right. So I like him. We know rookie tight ends a little bit slower, not named Kyle Pitts, but there's definitely some upside there. All right, so that gets us to our top waiver wire target for Week 9, heading into Week 9. Who would it be for you?
It's changed like 6 times for me already, but as of this recording, it is Jeremy Mcnichols, because I think even if the Titans swing a trade or they bring in a veteran, it's going to take that running back a little time to get up to speed. So I think Mcnichols will have a large role, at least in the next couple of weeks, especially as like the third down, 2-minute back, the pass catching specialist. We've seen him have a game this year where he had 12 targets. He's had a couple of games with 3 or 4 targets. So they like him in that role. And that was even with them throwing more to Derrick Henry. So I think Mcnichols, regardless of what they do to bring in another back, the next couple of weeks is in play just because of the pass game usage. So he would be my top ad as of now, especially if I'm trying to replace Derrick Henry.
All right. I'm going to say Boston Scott, just because I think his role is going to get bigger, at least while Miles Sanders is away. I do worry about what the Titans are going to do in terms of a trade. I still think Mcnichols is worth an ad, but I just like Boston Scott, I think, a little bit more. I would also maybe tinge it with a little bit of Mark Ingram, too, especially if Taysom Hill is going to be the guy going forward. Maybe that opens up some things for Mark Ingram in that backfield. But either way, a lot of folks are going to need running back help in the very near future. And there's going to be a lot of names out there available in play when you go make your waiver claims coming up this week.